Jens, thank you. Thank you for taking your time and spending a busy afternoon with me. I'm really, really excited. If you don't mind, maybe giving your perspective, who is Jens?
No, sure. So Sanjar, I live in State College, Pennsylvania. I found my way here from Eastern Pennsylvania, where I graduated from high school. And previous to that, I was born in Hackensack, New Jersey. My mom is an American from Bergen County, New Jersey, and she met my dad about 50 years ago. He was off the airplane, I suppose, not off of a boat from the Baltic. He's a Danish fellow, and I've been in the insurance and employee benefit financial services world since I was about 20 years old, roughly 1998. I've been in the business more or less nonstop since that time.
Yeah, and that's a pretty long, extensive time in insurance world. I assume you've seen all kinds of changes. If somebody's watching this thinking about starting their own insurance agency because they want freedom, they want recurring revenue, they call them residuals, right? What's the first hard truth you want them to hear before they make that decision?
Well, it's an interesting question. Yeah, I think that it's very analogous to like the world of personal development, this world of entrepreneurship and startups, where in a sense, for an entrepreneur, I think it's very likely that what you find your biggest strength is also perhaps your biggest weakness. And what I mean by that is the salesperson is always trying to solve all problems with sales, and it solves a lot of problems, but it doesn't solve all of them. Operations people try to create efficiencies out of any problem that they're in. Sometimes those are the right tools and sometimes there's not. But back to your question, one of the best things about the insurance business, in my opinion, is also potentially the biggest barrier to entry for a scratch firm. And that is the average tenure of the customer, the lifetime value of the customer, and the sales cycle are all very, very good for established firms because there's so much stickiness and it's such a predictable revenue stream that the other side of it is disrupting people out of that stream and that stickiness. It's absolutely possible, and groups do it all the time, but it's hard to grow fast the way that some organizations think of like software as a solution firms grow fast. This is a much more old school, sticky set of relationships that if you're expecting that you're going to go in there and just disrupt the world, best of luck to you. But I have yet to see anybody really do that with one exception, and that was a grow and then collapse story like I never saw in this business. And
Wow.
that would be the story of Zenefits. Like I've never seen anything approaching that in my career in this business. It's the only time where I thought maybe somebody figured it out, but then it turns out that it was, duct tape and bubble gum a little bit behind the scenes.
What should they expect? If somebody, because coming obviously from some type of insurance background, I always seen that brokers or agencies, somebody wants to start a business, it usually takes a good year just to learn the industry, to have some type of book already built. When year two is when you start collecting the quote unquote residuals. But you got to
Mhm.
also balance it out between managing the existing book, but also bringing a new book, right? Like, can you maybe talk about like what they should expect?
Yeah, and of course, every situation has the possibility of being different, right? So, but in general, what you should expect, like number one, I'm going to make an assumption that anybody contemplating establishing a scratch insurance agency already knows the business quite well.
Mm.
This is this is not a place to play while you're learning. There's plenty to learn as a new business owner. There's plenty to learn in the business. But if you're trying to stand up a scratch firm while learning the business, I don't know that I can think of a single colleague in the business that would have been better off doing that rather than going and learning the business through an established channel and learning business 101 skills beforehand before making that leap. I certainly had that experience of growing slowly and learning slowly over years before creating this scratch firm about 4 years ago. And that, man, it's too much of a lift to do all of it at once. If we make an assumption that you already know the business, that you've either come up through an established
Firm.
agency or an insurance company, I have some hesitation about how much you can learn at an insurance company, by the way. But but it's probably possible. And you have an established set of relationships, you know the business, and then you want to go and start from scratch. What I would tell you to expect is you should plan to be working very, very hard. The single most important thing that will determine your ability to succeed by is defined by like surviving 5 years at all must be getting off to a fast start from a sales and marketing perspective. If you're able to bring or acquire a book of business, that probably would help. But then it will take a solid year to get all the systems going in place and really humming from all the different perspectives of licensing, carrier relationships, your internal accounting and finance processes, getting the vendors in place to support things like IT and sales and marketing collateral and third party vendors that you'll need to help with certain types of compliance circumstances. If you can figure out how to get that all humming inside of 12 months, I think you're doing a great job. And of course, before you start, any agency entrepreneur that's contemplating this sort of thing must give themselves some modeling of a base case of sales, marketing, and financial performance, an optimistic case, and a pessimistic case.
Mhm.
And in that model, it absolutely has to recognize it should be on a monthly basis. And it should recognize that from the time that you sell that case or that piece of business, what is the actual timing of the receipt of the revenues? Because in a lot of this stuff, it's monthly recognized revenue, and it oftentimes takes 60 to 90 days before you even see the first payment. So if it takes you 6 months to make that sale,
Wow.
takes you 90 days to get that first payment, you're talking about recognizing 1/12 of the first month of annualized revenue, about 270 days in to that process. So somebody could probably figure out how to do it fast.
It hasn't
I
been
did
done it.
not. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to be that person. The only one I wondered if they had figured that out was this group Zenefits, and then they, of course, like collapsed in epic proportion some years ago.
Something you said about a few things you got to consider when you want to start your own brokerage firm or your own firm or your agency is carrier relationship. And I think prior to being in the insurance world myself, I didn't fully understand what it meant because every other piece that you mentioned is very kind of recognizable and transferable because same thing, you got to deal with the finances, you got to have a sales team, you got to have a marketing plan, you got to have X, Y, and Z. But you made a comment about carrier relation, and I feel like it's the only industry, maybe there's other industries, that you kind of also got to rely on your relationship for another company, and they'll treat you differently if you're just starting.
Oh, yeah.
Can you
Yeah, it's a
elaborate?
huge
Tell me.
challenge. Yeah, so like I know what you mean about it being unique in the industry. One of the things that I found the most amazing about going back to business school, which I did when I was like 38 years old.
Wow.
Um and so I was already president of a firm. I'd already been through multiple
Wow.
stock transactions. And so I went back to business school just to try to get that broader business education and some additional training in corporate finance and leadership at NYU Stern. And one of the things that I discovered is how much analogy really works between industries. So certainly if you're in the distribution of alcoholic beverages for retail consumption, usually it's not coming directly from the manufacturer of the liquors. They're generally going through some
Middleman.
independent
Yeah.
wholesale middleman that's then wholesaling to the local relationships and worrying about a lot of the same things we worry about in the insurance business. It's about efficiency, it's about relationship, it's about customer service, it's about having the right
Volume.
culture. It's absolutely about volume. And that's very analogous to our business. In our business, you can think about marketing strategy um, at the insurance company level as asking one fundamental question. Are we going directly to the customer, or are we going through an intermediary? If we're going through an intermediary, which is by and large where everybody has landed in the industry at this point, then you have to ask yourself a second question. Are we going to internalize the cost and capability of hitting every one of these possible distribution partners one to one, like directly? Or do we want to limit that universe and continue to contract one to one, but try to get the top N% of distribution partners and exclude everybody else? Or do we want to contract kind of like the spirits business that I had just offered an example of? Do we want to offer a wholesale contract to wholesale brokers that can go out there and find in their communities all these brokers and let's pay them? And then they can use that money to internalize their own cost and capabilities around searching and servicing these other agencies. One of the challenges in the business is just starting out recognizing who uses what strategy. Because, by the way, there's other variations on each of these themes that deal with incentive compensation and renewal of your appointment. From my perspective, our customer base is all over America. And anytime we're entering a new market, either because we're being strategic and intentional, or because we happen to be responsive, opportunistic to opportunity with an existing relationship says, hey, I'm taking a new HR leadership role in Illinois or in North Carolina around Raleigh, Durham. Then we have to ask ourselves, well, how would we access those markets? And we need to look at who the primary markets are. Are they going direct or through a general agency that we already work with? And the answer is different market by market. We have a lot of vendors that we deal with direct. We have some that we work through general agencies. And on that general agency side, there are, I think we've got contracts with 5 at this point. That 5 gets us pretty good coverage throughout America. There's probably a state at some point we'll find our way into that needs a new one.
Since you've been in a business, you've owned the company, you've sold the company, you worked for a Fortune 500 company, or you worked for a large company. Then you end up going back to owning your own business. So there's two questions I have. The first question is, what's the difference between building a book of business and building a real company in insurance? And where do most owners get it wrong?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, so I think that it is fair to say that as a producer at an insurance agency, growing a book of business does feel very much like you're building a firm or you're building a business. The reason that it isn't entirely accurate is that there are, of course, and so what are you doing that's analogous? Well, you're making outbound calls to the marketplace for customers. You're being present in the community to create awareness about your value proposition as a producer within another firm. You're probably, if you're at a good organization, offered some amount of discretion and some amount of input into some of the marketing expense and investments that are being made. So I'm not sure that you can be an effective leader of an agency and not have a good buy-in and a sense of partnership, whether it's literal partnership or just rhetorical. There has to be a spirit of partnership between the production staff and the ownership of the and leadership of an agency. With all that said, when you are growing an agency, it's all of that stuff that I just mentioned, plus, plus, plus. It's
Right.
internalizing all the administrative sundry tasks around things like your own insurance, your own taxes and accounting, your own procurement and real estate. And, frankly, producers love to visualize themselves as entrepreneurs and business owners. And they are in so many different ways.
In
They
so many
are.
ways. Right, right, right.
But at the end of the day, when that producer, 9 times out of 10, in my experience, encounters a hiccup with something that seems not value added at the agency, where does it land? Well, it lands with the owners.
One thing I really want viewers to hear this perspective that you shared with me during our last call about slowing down to speed up. You made a comment to me that at this point, we're not taking any business because we wanted to make sure we're giving our existing clients, and I'm not going to steal the thunder, I'm going to let you finish that. Why is that?
Yeah,
Why aren't you taking any clients? Because I never heard somebody said that. We at this point kind of pausing.
yeah. So I think that our call when I offered that feedback was around the end of December.
Right.
And our
Right.
yeah, so our and I'm almost coming out of this. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm as of this weekend, I'm getting pretty close. But we set, we're a small team. We've got like 7 of us. We've got a group of about 55 commercial relationships right now. And at the beginning of last year, I had set a budget that had recognized that we had grown quite a bit up to that point, but it felt like it was pretty clear to me that the ideal client profile tended to skew a little bit larger and
Hmm.
require a bit more strategy and investment to bring them in, as opposed to just putting up the sign and taking what was kind of coming in off the street. It required more sales. I don't know if it required less marketing, but relatively more sales per unit of marketing. And it worked incredibly well. And we said we only really wanted 5 net new mid market clients last year. Turned out we needed 6 mid market clients because one of our clients got sold to a roll up software
Larger
company
company.
out of Canada.
Okay.
So, which, was fine. This is what happens in business.
Pretty common.
Well, anyway, around the fourth quarter, with one of our business partners, we were asked if we would consider absorbing a group of about 20 additional customers. And they skewed a bit smaller, but they were in some of the communities that we live in. And they included some businesses run by friends. And it just felt like the right thing to do. But once we made that agreement and we started like feeling the pressure of that, along with recognizing the commitments that we made for our existing clients, which is, by the way, a very service intensive philosophy. We put a lot of work into what we do for our clients. And I could see by the time the middle to end of October was coming around that we were going to start compromising our ability to perform for our clients if we accepted new business. So around the third week of October, fourth week of October, we had to communicate into the marketplace during a period where there was a lot of demand that we were just not in a position to take additional new clients on. I have to admit, I lost a little bit of sleep about this for a couple of reasons, including one of the sources of one of these prospects that we had to not accept was a referral from a very large, meaningful client to us.
Oh,
Meaningful,
wow.
meaningful up to and including just caring very deeply about the relationships that are very old. But we just had to say that just looking ourselves in the kind of mirror, we were going to not only jeopardize, it's not just about them. It's like all of the clients like
Absolutely.
them. We just felt like we were jeopardizing our ability to perform. So I ended up making a personal telephone call so that it didn't become misunderstood. And that, of course, we want to help everybody and we do our best, but more than we're trying to be big, we're trying to be good.
That's
And
amazing.
if that means in the short run, our revenue is modestly smaller, so be it, because in the long run, we think that will take care of itself.
Was speaking with somebody who owns a $300 million business, right? I'm gonna say his name is Mike. It's like, Mike, what's one advice you can give entrepreneur who's just starting the business? He goes, don't try to grow so quickly. Take time. And when I heard that, I'm immediately thought of you. I was like, what a perfect example and a segue to our podcast tomorrow, because that just solidified to what you were saying and this amazing story, right? Let's talk about AI. If AI could realistically help an agency owner handle a bigger book without losing any high touch relationships, where do you think that leverage mattered the most? Compliance, admin, sales support, or even client service?
Yeah, I think it's client, admin, and sales support,
Oh,
perhaps customer service from like a back office perspective. I think that to the extent you're able to create tools using AI products that can take the prep work for a client call for a customer service person, account management person, or producer down from 14 minutes to 3 minutes, then that can stack on the customer service side. I'm personally using tools that we have built to help us with monthly bookkeeping, to use for compliance solutions. We have a custom AI tool using off of the Claude code technology for ACA reporting. And I think there is a way that operations can leverage AI in a way that it hasn't been done yet, to what I've seen around the issuance of requests for proposals, tracking about the status of requests for proposals, and the first cut of the analysis of the various proposals. I think there's an opportunity there that's really meaningful in the business that I haven't seen anybody actually do anything with yet.
Yeah.
If I had an extra 40 hours a week, that's what I would be working on right now.
There we go. There we go. My last question is very simple, and this is something that even I battled in the past. For someone who's listening who has a healthy salary, good cushioning job, they're prospering, but they're in insurance, right? In insurance space. Gosh, what's one question they should be asking themselves? Honestly, honest question before they make that leap and start an insurance company.
If they were thinking about like having this entrepreneurial seizure to leave
Yeah.
whatever they were doing effectively to go do this, yeah, I would say that
I mean, we're talking
it's
about
like a,
also healthy salary companies. You are in a
yeah,
great spot in the company. You have a book, right? You have a residual book coming in, but they'll just want that entrepreneur. They don't want that 9 to 5 feeling, right? They wanna call their own shots. They wanna make more money because you always make more money when you own your own company versus working for somebody.
yeah. So that's the first belief a lot of people have, but isn't necessarily true, depending on whether or not you are
Wow.
thinking about the initial stage or the final stage. David Packard from Hewlett Packard shared an observation about his overnight success, that it was very much like most overnight successes. It was about 30 years in the making. And a lot of our customers been monitoring them very closely. A lot of the ones that at first blush appear to have just taken off as a rocket ship had more than a decade of languishing for whatever reason. It's not that easy, and I've seen plenty of people struggle to get over that hump, not even just in establishing an agency, but just building a book from scratch. Even that is a 4 to 5 year process if you do not have the responsibility of also doing all the stuff that goes with the business. With that said,
Wow.
it can still be the right thing for people. I don't think it would be fair to suggest that it's like a single question. For most people that are contemplating this, it's like a series of questions. It's, have you done the work to financially model the base case, optimistic and pessimistic case on a monthly basis of what you think the first 4 years of this business could look like?
Four
If you have,
years. 4 years.
I would do not feel comfortable recommending anybody move forward with a business plan that doesn't contemplate in the insurance and employee benefits businesses. If you don't have a 4 year horizon, I don't even think you give yourself a realistic opportunity to have an outlook about how good it could be.
Wow.
So I would say you need to do that. You need to ask yourself some hard personal questions about, what are you really being motivated? Is it you're trying to build and grow something, or are you trying to get away from something? Is it that you think that life could be so much better based on having this control and this agency over growing something and having like discretion? That's positive. That's all, like anything that feels positive and growth oriented is a good reason to think about proceeding it or like pursuing it. But for a lot of people, what it actually is, it's a reflection of something negative. Is it, I don't like my boss. I don't like the way that we are assigned account management staff. I don't like our CRM. These are not good reasons to start an agency. These are good reasons to maybe look for another job or to talk with your leaders. But if you're not ending up on the positive side of the emotional kind of
Wow.
key account, I think you're going to discover how much it matters when it gets hard 9, 15 months in. And
Yeah.
then, by the way, nobody should forego the analysis of their own ability to sustain operating in the pessimistic case scenario. Do you have enough cash or access to funds to cope with if it doesn't get off to a really fast start? If you need the sale, it's really hard to make it.